When Rivers Meet. Chapter 1. The Collision. Amira Patel always walked quickly. She liked the rhythm of her heels striking pavement, the certainty of her stride, the orderliness of her routine. The city bustled around her, honking horns, chatter, the scent of roasted chestnuts from a vendor, but she hardly noticed. She had a meeting in 15 minutes, and she was determined not to be late. Her leather bag was heavy with rolled-up blueprints, her laptop, and a stack of council notes. She balanced a paper cup of coffee in her right hand, eyes scanning the tidy lines of her planner as she moved. Precision, efficiency, control, that was how Amira navigated life. Until her foot caught on something hard. The world tilted. Coffee splashed across her notes, papers fluttered like startled pigeons, and Amira stumbled forward with a gasp. "Hey! Watch it!" a voice barked. She spun around, heart racing, to find a guitar case sprawled across the sidewalk like an abandoned suitcase. Beside it crouched a man she'd never seen before, dark curls falling into his eyes, a worn leather jacket, scuffed boots, and a guitar in his hands. He looked at her like she had done something wrong. "You left this thing in the middle of the walkway." Amira snapped, bending to snatch her scattered papers. He lifted a brow, unfazed. "It's not a thing, it's a guitar. And I wasn't exactly expecting someone to barrel through like a freight train. I was walking at a perfectly normal pace." She brushed at the coffee stains, jaw tight. "Some of us have jobs to get to." The man gave a small, amused huff. "And some of us are trying to make this city a little less grey." She glared. He smiled. For a moment, they stood locked in silent opposition, her papers clutched defensively against her chest, his guitar resting casually on his knee as though he had all the time in the world. "Well," she said finally, adjusting her blazer, "perhaps next time you can not endanger pedestrians with your artistic sprawl. And perhaps next time," he said, his grin widening, "you can look up from your planner long enough to see life happening around you." Her cheeks flushed hot. Without another word, Amira pivoted on her heel and strode away, coffee-stained notes rustling in her bag. She muttered to herself the whole walk to City Hall, convinced she'd just encountered the most infuriating man in the city. Behind her, Kai strummed his guitar lazily, watching her disappear into the crowd. He shook his head with a laugh. "Paper Storm Lady. Probably won't ever see her again." If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you won't miss more eerie and fascinating tales. Chapter 2. The Unexpected Re-Encounter. 2 weeks later, Amira found herself standing in the middle of Rosemorn Plaza with a roll of design sketches tucked under her arm. The plaza was loud with life, pigeons darted between the fountain, children chased each other around the benches, and a man selling roasted corn shouted above the din. Amira tried to tune it all out. She was here on official business. The city council had finally approved her proposal to renovate this space. A plaza, in her mind, should be orderly and functional. The fountain would be cleaned, benches rearranged symmetrically, pathways widened. She could already see the lines of her design taking shape as she turned in a slow circle, mentally erasing clutter and replacing it with clean geometry. Then she heard it, a warm, lilting melody threading through the air like smoke. Her chest tightened. No, it couldn't be. She turned and froze. There he was, perched on the edge of a planter, guitar balanced on his knee, fingers moving effortlessly across the strings. His head tilted with the music, eyes half closed as if nothing else existed but the notes. A small crowd had gathered, tourists tossing coins, children swaying to the rhythm, a couple holding hands as they paused to listen. The sound was beautiful. Infuriatingly beautiful. Her jaw clenched. Of all the plazas in the city, why here? As if sensing her, his eyes flicked open mid-song. Recognition lit his face. He grinned. "Oh no," he said loud enough for a few people in the crowd to hear, pausing mid-strum. "Not the Paper Storm Lady." Amira bristled, marching over. "It's architect, actually. Amira Patel. And you're obstructing the area again." Gasps and chuckles rippled through the crowd. Kai leaned back, smirk playful. "Obstructing? I'm improving the acoustics of your construction zone." She crossed her arms. "This is going to be a construction site, not a stage." "Stage," Plaza, same difference. Both are for the public. He shrugged, picking out a teasing riff. Besides, you should be thanking me. My music probably helps people forget the cracked tiles and broken benches you're here to complain about. Her lips pressed into a thin line. I'm not here to complain. I'm here to fix it. That's what I do. Fix. His fingers stilled on the strings. Or sterilize. The challenge in his eyes made her bristle, yet, something in the way he said it stung deeper than she expected. Sterilize, she repeated. You're going to pave over the mess until it all looks neat and lifeless. Cities aren't supposed to be neat. They're supposed to breathe. To feel alive. A murmur of agreement rose from a few onlookers. Amira's cheeks burned. She wasn't used to being challenged like this, especially not in public. She wanted to argue back, to tell him he had no idea what he was talking about, that without architects like her the city would crumble into chaos. But instead, she heard herself say, "And what would you know about it? You play music for coins." Kai studied her for a long moment. Then he gave a slow, mischievous smile. Maybe so. But at least people listen. The crowd laughed. Amira's face went hot. She turned sharply, muttering, "Unbelievable," as she gathered her sketches and walked briskly toward the fountain. Behind her, Kai struck up another tune, lighter and more playful this time. Almost as though he was playing at her. And though she refused to look back, a part of her heard every note. Chapter 3, A Clash of Values. Amira had not intended to see him again. Yet somehow, 2 days after the plaza confrontation, there he was, Kai, leaning casually against a cafe window when she stepped out of City Hall. "Coffee?" he asked, like they were old friends. She frowned. "Why would I?" "Because," he said, strumming an invisible chord in the air, "you owe me. Last time, you insulted my entire career in front of half the plaza." Her instinct was to snap back, but the playful tilt of his mouth disarmed her. Against her better judgment, she found herself walking into the cafe with him. The place was warm, fragrant with roasted beans and cinnamon. Amira sat stiffly at a corner table while Kai sprawled opposite, as if every cafe chair were made just for him. He stirred his coffee lazily. "So, Ms. Architect, tell me, why are you so obsessed with straight lines and concrete?" Amira took a careful sip of her latte before answering. "Because structure matters. If you don't design with intention, cities collapse into chaos." He leaned forward. "And what's wrong with a little chaos? Some of the best moments in life aren't designed. They just happen." She gave him a sharp look. "Like tripping over your guitar case." Kai grinned. "Exactly." Her exasperation was real, but so was her intrigue. He wasn't dismissive, he was challenging. No one challenged her like this. "You measure life in moments," she said finally. "But what happens when those moments fade? What do you have left?" "Memories." His answer was immediate. "Songs. Faces. Laughter." He shrugged. "I don't need a 10-year plan to know I've lived." Amira tapped her spoon against her cup. "That's reckless." He tilted his head, studying her with a softness that unsettled her. "Or maybe it's free." Silence stretched between them, filled only by the clink of cups and the low hum of the cafe. For a moment, Amira thought about her life. Meetings, deadlines, neat stacks of paper. Efficient. Yes. But free. She shook the thought away. Some of us don't have the luxury of living without plans. Kai leaned back, running a thumb along the rim of his cup. "Maybe you should try it sometime." There was no malice in his voice, only challenge. And for reasons she couldn't explain, Amira felt something shift inside her. Annoyance, yes, but also curiosity. She straightened, gathering her things. "Thank you for the coffee. But I have work to do." As she walked away, Kai called after her, his voice warm with mischief. "See you at the plaza, Amira Patel." And she knew, somehow, that she would. Chapter 4, A Glimpse of Vulnerability. The late afternoon sun spilled across Rosemorn Plaza, staining the tiles gold. Amira stood near the fountain with her notebook, sketching modifications to the site plan. She was so focused on her lines that she didn't notice the music until it wrapped around her like a thread. She sighed. Of course. Working again. Kai's voice floated over the melody. She turned, lips pressed tight. Some of us do that, yes. He grinned, but it didn't quite reach his eyes today. He finished his song and set the guitar gently in its case, almost reverent. Then, surprisingly, he walked over and sat on the fountain's edge beside her. For a while, they both watched the water arc and fall. Neither spoke. Finally, Kai said quietly, "You ever feel like you built your whole life around something, and then one mistake makes it all come crashing down?" Amira blinked. She wasn't used to hearing him serious. "What do you mean?" He stared at the rippling water. "I wasn't always out here. I used to study music, real music. Conservatory, stage performances, all of it. I thought I was going to be someone." His mouth twisted. Then one night, at a recital, I froze. Just froze. Couldn't move my fingers. Couldn't breathe. I walked off stage, and I never went back. His voice dropped. Street playing was the only way I could still touch music without facing that kind of failure again. The words settled heavily between them. Amira didn't know what to say. She glanced at him, this man who seemed so careless, so free. But now, he looked fragile, like glass. Her own voice surprised her. "I know what that's like." He turned to her, brows raised. She hesitated, then admitted, "I've built everything in my life around control. Around not failing. Every project, every decision. If I take one wrong step, I feel like it'll all unravel. That's why I plan so much. It's safer." Kai studied her, something tender flickering in his gaze. "So your blueprints are your shield. And your guitar is yours." A slow smile tugged at his lips. "Guess we're not so different after all." The fountain splashed between them. The plaza buzzed with voices, but for once Amira wasn't thinking about symmetry or deadlines. She was thinking about how two people, so unlike each other, could sit side by side and, just for a moment, understand. Chapter 5, The Bridge. It was nearly midnight when Amira unlocked the heavy glass door to her office building and glanced over her shoulder. Kai trailed behind her, guitar case slung across his back, whistling softly as if midnight tours of office towers were the most natural thing in the world. "Are you sure this isn't trespassing?" he teased, following her into the elevator. "I work here," Amira said briskly, pressing the button for the top floor. "So technically, no. But if anyone asks, you're my consultant." Kai grinned. "Best title I've ever had." The elevator doors slid open onto the rooftop access. A cool wind swept across the open expanse, carrying the faint hum of traffic below. From up here, the city stretched out like a glittering circuit board, orderly grids of streets, clusters of glowing towers, the river curling dark and wide through it all. Kai whistled low. "Wow! Not a bad view." Amira unrolled a large sheet of paper on the rooftop ledge and weighed it down with her bag. "This is what I wanted to show you." He stepped closer. Under the dim rooftop light, the lines of her drawing spread across the page. Sweeping pathways, curved bridges, open terraces overlooking the river. It wasn't rigid, not like most of her work. The lines flowed, almost like waves. "This," she said softly, "is my dream project. A riverside walkway. A place where people can come and," she hesitated, searching for the right word, "breathe." Kai was quiet. He bent over the drawing, tracing the air above the curves with his hand. "It's alive," he said finally. "Not cold, not square. It feels like music." Her chest warmed at the word. Music. He unslung his guitar and sat cross-legged on the rooftop, positioning himself beside her blueprints. "Here. Watch." His fingers began to move, slow and deliberate, weaving a melody that rose and fell in time with the lines of her design. When the paths curved, the music bent. When the bridges stretched, the notes held long and bright. The city below became the audience, the river the rhythm, the rooftop their secret stage. Amira found herself smiling without meaning to. For once, she didn't see numbers or zoning restrictions. She saw movement, people strolling hand in hand, children chasing kites, laughter bouncing off the water. Her design didn't feel like a structure anymore. It felt like life. Kai looked up at her mid-song. See? You design with lines. I design with sound. But it's the same thing. We're both trying to build places where people can feel something. Amira's throat tightened. She didn't trust herself to speak, so she just nodded. The song drifted into silence. The city stretched around them, endless and glittering. And for the first time in years, Amira felt as though she wasn't standing above it, directing from a distance. She felt part of it. Beside her, Kai leaned back on his elbows, gazing at the stars. Not bad for a consultant gig, huh? She laughed, an unguarded laugh that startled her as much as it startled him. For that brief night, the differences between them didn't matter. Structure and chaos, order and freedom, they had found a bridge between the two. Chapter 6. Tension rising. The plaza was buzzing with unease. Street performers whispered in clusters, their instruments quiet, their usual laughter replaced by anxious mutters. Flyers had been taped to lampposts. Notice. City Council considers ban on unlicensed street performances. Kai stood in the center of it all, the flyer crumpled in his fist. His guitar leaned against the fountain, untouched. This can't be happening, muttered Lena, a violinist who often played duets with him. If they shut us down, we're finished. They'll never go for it, Kai said, but his voice lacked conviction. That was when he saw her. Amira walked into the plaza, portfolio in hand, her blazer sharp against the late afternoon light. For a heartbeat, Kai felt relief. She was here. She could help. But then a darker thought crept in. Maybe she was part of this. Amira, he called, his voice sharper than he intended. She turned, surprise flickering across her face. Kai, I was just. You knew about this, didn't you? He held up the flyer. She froze. I heard the council was discussing it, yes. The words sliced deeper than she realized. So you're redesigning this place to push us out? His voice carried, and the nearby performers turned toward them. That's what this is about. Amira's pulse quickened. No. My design doesn't eliminate performers, it makes space for benches. For fountains. For symmetry, he snapped. Not for people like us. She clenched her fists. Don't put this on me, Kai. I'm trying to do my job. I can't just throw out a city contract because you want to strum your guitar on a corner. The words left her mouth harsher than she intended, but it was too late. Kai's face hardened. Right. Your job. The rules. The plans. That's all you care about, isn't it? Not people. Not life. Just boxes and blueprints. That's not fair. Her voice wavered, but he had already turned away, slinging his guitar over his shoulder with a bitterness she hadn't seen before. For the first time since she'd met him, he didn't smile. Amira stood rooted to the spot as the performers around them whispered. She wanted to call after him, to explain, but pride clamped her throat shut. Instead, she turned back to her portfolio, her heart pounding, her sketches suddenly feeling like fragile lies. Chapter 7. Breaking Apart. The days after the plaza confrontation felt heavy, almost suffocating. Amira buried herself in her office, surrounded by blueprints and spreadsheets. Every line she drew felt sterile, every decision mechanical. Normally, structure soothed her, but now the echo of Kai's words haunted her. Not people. Not life. Just boxes and blueprints. She replayed their argument in her mind, over and over, analyzing every phrase, every sharp glance. Was he right? The thought made her stomach twist. She had tried to do the right thing, stick to her work, follow the rules, and yet, in trying to protect order, she had lost connection with someone who mattered. Meanwhile, Kai wandered the streets of the city with his guitar slung over his shoulder, but the music that usually came so effortlessly now felt hollow. His fingers strummed chords, but the sound lacked life, lacking the spark it usually had when she was near. Even his small audience noticed. Coins were fewer, smiles muted. He thought about her constantly. About the way she had smiled on the rooftop, about the precision in her hands as she traced her blueprints, about the stubborn spark in her eyes when she argued with him. He hated that she got under his skin so easily. And yet, he missed her. Both of them moved through their days in parallel loneliness. Amira adjusted plans, filed reports, and spoke to city officials, all while feeling a persistent ache of absence she didn't want to name. Kai busked and walked empty streets, seeking inspiration that refused to come. Weeks passed in this silent standoff. Neither called, neither reached out, though both longed to. It was as if the city itself held its breath, waiting for someone to break the impasse. And then, one evening, Amira sat on a bench near the plaza, staring at the crumbling fountain and the uneven tiles. She pulled out her notebook, doodling curves and lines without intention, letting herself imagine possibilities beyond rigid plans. Across the plaza, Kai appeared, quietly setting his guitar case down. He didn't play at first, he just watched her. She noticed him and looked away, heart racing. Neither spoke for minutes, yet the silence between them was heavier than any argument. Finally, Kai broke it with a soft, almost tentative question. "Do you miss this?" Amira didn't answer right away. She wanted to say yes, wanted to admit she'd thought of him constantly, but pride stopped her. Instead, she said, "Maybe. But I can't just throw everything away." Kai nodded slowly. "Neither can I. But maybe there's another way." For the first time in weeks, a spark of hope flickered between them, a fragile, tentative thread connecting two very different worlds. Chapter 8. The Turning Point. The council hearing room smelled of varnish, old carpet, and nervous energy. Rows of chairs were filled with city residents, some holding instruments, others carrying portfolios or notebooks. Posters lined the walls, pleading for the preservation of street performances in Rosemorn Plaza. Amira stood near the back, her portfolio clutched tightly. She had spent the previous night drafting her speech, carefully weaving together her professional expertise and a subtle nod to the human element she had long ignored. Kai arrived shortly after, carrying his guitar. His usual bravado was tempered by tension, his eyes scanning the crowd and landing briefly on Amira. Neither spoke at first, but their silent acknowledgement carried weight. The council began. Arguments for regulation were presented with crisp professionalism, citing safety, noise complaints, and city code violations. Then came the performers. Kai stepped forward first. His voice wavered slightly at the start, but he found his footing. "We aren't just noise on the streets," he said, his gaze sweeping the room. "We're part of the community. Music and performance are how people connect, how they remember this city. If you take that away, you take away part of the city's soul." The council murmured, some nodding, some skeptical. Then Amira rose. The room went quiet. She felt her pulse in her throat but steadied herself, glancing briefly at Kai. He gave her a small nod of encouragement. "Members of the council," she began, voice firm but calm, "I am an architect. My work is to design spaces that serve the community. I was initially concerned about safety and order in Rosemorn Plaza, but after observing and interacting with the performers here, I realized that order does not require erasing life. In fact, a well-designed plaza should celebrate creativity, music, and human connection." She paused, letting her words sink in. "We can build benches, pathways, and safety features and still give artists space to perform freely. Structure and freedom do not have to be enemies, they can coexist. I am proposing a revised design that preserves areas for street performers while ensuring public safety and accessibility. This isn't about rules versus people. It's about harmony." A quiet ripple passed through the room. Kai looked at her, eyes wide, as if seeing her truly for the first time, not just the meticulous architect, but someone capable of understanding, advocating, and bridging worlds. When the council deliberated, it was not long before the decision was unanimous. The plaza would include dedicated areas for street performances, fully integrated into Amira's design. After the hearing, outside the city hall, Kai approached her. His fingers hovered near his guitar, hesitant. "You did that for me?" he asked softly. "I did it for all of us," she said. "For the plaza, for the people, and yes, maybe for you too." He smiled, a slow, genuine curve of lips. I'm glad. She laughed lightly, tension finally easing. Don't make a habit of relying on me to save your music. He chuckled. Don't make a habit of thinking I could survive without it. For the first time in weeks, they walked side by side, their differences still present but no longer barriers. There was trust now, and a fragile but undeniable bond that hinted at the possibility of something deeper. Chapter 9, Harmony. The morning sun spilled gold across Rosemorn Plaza. Amira stood at the edge of the newly designed paths, watching as artisans and performers arrived to claim their spaces. The plaza felt alive, not just structured, not just orderly, but vibrant and full of energy. Kai appeared soon after, guitar case in hand, scanning the crowd before spotting her. He walked over, a bright grin spreading across his face. You kept your word, he said, nodding toward the performers setting up in their dedicated areas. I did, she replied, a small smile tugging at her lips. And you? Keeping the plaza lively. He laughed, tuning his guitar. Trying. Kai strummed a few notes, tentative at first, then with growing confidence as a small audience gathered. The music flowed, threading through the arches of her design, curling around benches and fountains, winding along the paths. Amira felt it in her chest, the harmony of structure and spontaneity, order and freedom. Each note seemed to dance along the curve she had drawn, every chord a celebration of human presence in her work. As the crowd cheered, Kai stopped mid-song and looked at her. I wrote something for this moment, he said, soft but earnest. He played a melody she had never heard before, gentle, playful, and surprisingly intimate. She listened, heart quickening. It wasn't just a song, it was an acknowledgement, a thank you, a bridge built from music and shared understanding. Amira approached the fountain, sitting on the edge beside him. I never realized, she began, hesitating, that a design could feel alive like this. Neither did I, Kai admitted. I thought music was all about freedom, and you thought life was all about order. Turns out, both are necessary. She smiled, letting herself relax. Balance, then. Balance, he echoed, strumming a soft chord. For a while, they sat in silence, watching the plaza fill with people. Children laughing, performers smiling, couples strolling hand in hand. Their differences hadn't vanished. Her need for structure, his love of chaos, still existed. But here, in this moment, it didn't matter. The plaza, like them, had found harmony. When the crowd dispersed, Kai turned to her, eyes glinting with mischief and warmth. So, coffee later. Amira laughed, shaking her head. We've got work to do, but yes, coffee later. And for the first time, the plaza wasn't the only thing feeling alive. Chapter 10, When Rivers Meet. The plaza was alive in the morning sun. Vendors arranged flowers and pastries along the edges, children's laughter echoed off the stone benches, and musicians played freely in the designated areas. Amira walked slowly along the curved pathways, sketchbook tucked under her arm, marveling at how her vision had come to life. The river beside the plaza glimmered in the light, reflecting the movement and joy around it. She paused on a bridge overlooking the water, taking a deep breath. Everything felt right. A familiar strum drifted through the air. Kai appeared at her side, guitar slung across his back. He leaned casually on the bridge railing, smiling. You always find the quietest moments to enjoy the view, he teased. I notice details, she said, a small smile tugging at her lips. Some things are worth noticing. Kai nodded, settling beside her. For a while, they simply stood together, watching the city breathe around them. You know, he said finally, I never thought a plaza could feel like this. Like it belonged to everyone, and still have a heartbeat. It's not just the plaza, Amira said softly. It's the people. And maybe some of us too. Kai laughed, a warm, rich sound. So you mean me? She looked at him, her eyes meeting his. Yes. You, too. He strummed a gentle chord, letting it linger in the air. Then he played a melody he had been saving, one that told a story of collision, conflict, distance, and finally connection. It was a song that captured their journey. Two very different people learning to meet in the middle, learning that harmony didn't mean being the same, but moving together despite differences. Amira watched him play, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't known she needed. Her meticulous plans, her careful structure, they had led her here, but it was the unpredictability, the chaos, the music, and the laughter that had made it whole. Kai's eyes met hers again. "So, what now?" She smiled, squeezing his hand. "Now we walk together. One step at a time. And see where the river takes us." The water flowed beneath them, winding, unpredictable, yet steady, a perfect reflection of what they had found together. They didn't need to erase their differences. They only needed to meet, bridge the gaps, and let life flow between them. And so, side by side, Amira and Kai walked along the riverside plaza. The city hummed around them, alive with music, laughter, and possibility. Their story wasn't perfect. It wasn't without challenges. But it was theirs. And for the first time in a long while, both of them knew that some of the most meaningful journeys were the ones taken with someone who moved to a completely different rhythm, and yet somehow, it fit.